Welcome back to Elevate Ordinary. I'm your host, JonMarc Grodi.
And I'm Teresa Grodi.
And we're back with another conversation, extraordinary conversation, hopefully, about the ordinary pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty every day in our normal life, family life, mom, dad life, all that stuff, all the opportunities God is sending to us to become the saints He's called us to be, and all those that we trip over and miss over every day, right, babe? Yeah.
What you said?
Yeah, all those things.
Exactly. Ditto.
Today we're talking about women's community, building community amongst women, which I know lots about, and so I'm going to be talking a lot today. Teresa's mostly going to be listening. I'm just kidding. Obviously, just kidding. But before we get into the topic today, I want to remind you, as always, go to elevateordinary.com to learn more about the show, to access all of our archives, and also to join our patron community, the Manor at St. Anne's, where we do stuff. We post other things sometimes. No, seriously, we were talking the other day. We want to have a lot more of your input because we want to build more episodes around kind of our shared experiences as fellow moms and dads and husbands and wives trying to live life in Christ. And we want more of your input so we can build some more shows around that. So that's a great place to be sharing that. We also, have ideas of things we want to do there, exclusive content and stuff like that. So we'll get to that hopefully eventually. But in the meantime, what are we talking about, babe?
Well, I thought, so you're supposed to ask me the questions.
Oh,
babe.
sorry.
He threw my notes before we started.
Okay. None of these have question marks at the end.
No. Okay. So I have a phenomenal community.
Yeah.
In our town of Catholic women from, we're a suburb of Toledo. We live in a suburb of Toledo. So it's not just our town, there's an array of people all over the place. But beautiful, intentional Catholic women living intentional Catholic lives. And we wanted to talk today about starting a mom's group, starting a women's group. Now this is something that I've been experientially doing for 7 years, and I've been part of them previously, and we had a phenomenal community in college before, but I'm not reading books on how to start women's groups. I'm not I don't have anything but real life experience,
right?
And I have real life experience with my own life, but I think that some of the things, and particularly the mindsets that I've cultivated over the years, are helpful to share, because you can have a list of how to start the moms group, but or how to start a small group, how to start a community or whatever. But if you don't have some ways of troubleshooting things that occur,
right,
or a mindset from which to act, it can, you can have a moms group that grows and then fizzles. Because I think of some mistakes that I've seen in the past, and I didn't want to emulate when we started our moms group 7 years ago.
And we've talked about these kinds of topics a lot on this show, many different angles, community building, that kind of stuff. And one of the things that we always emphasize on the show is virtue. And if we think back last year, talking to the New Polity guys, about money and the virtues related to money, one of their big points is that we get into systems thinking too much, where we think if we just have the perfect system, the perfect plan, the perfect structure, then it'll make up for our lack of virtue as a society of any size. And that's just not the case. The most perfect utopian structure in the world can't make up for lack of virtue. But on the flip side, virtue can make up for an imperfect system. You can live a pretty good life in the midst of that. So talking about this kind of thing, it's always an ongoing, evolving thing of trying to come up. What are some of the principles involved? What are some of the things that are helpful? But also, ultimately, just trying to encourage each other. You have to keep trying, keep experimenting to figure out how to make it work in your particular group.
Yeah. So something we realized pretty quick on when we moved from being single persons in lay ministry, which is how we met in college, part of our Catholic group, and moving into married life and starting to have children, is that I realized that I had been thinking with a business mindset in ministry.
Yeah.
And that having a family kills that business mindset. It causes, especially for women who are college educated, having a family causes a lot of anxiety, a lot of deep, awful feelings, deep, awful situations that you go into. But then when you come out of it, when you when you begin to see the journey that God, like the purification that God is
Mhm.
pulling you through, when you come out the other side, you're like, oh my gosh, God is a good and gracious Father who
Mhm.
is continuously pouring his grace and gifts down upon us. And I'm acting as if I have the right system, if I have the right business model, if
Mhm.
I act like a business in the world, in my church, we're going to grow and it's all going to be based on this particular business model. And
Yeah.
that is absolute bosh.
Mhm.
Like God is is the one who gives any good fruit that I have.
Mhm.
And I could have nothing without it. So one of our early on ministries, like realizing once we were starting having kids, is that, oh my gosh, my kids and my family's messiness needs to be up front. Like the best way that we can serve the church is to show the church that families don't look like businesses. Families don't look like compartmentalized little places where you put the kids here, you put the adults here, you put family time here, and you put Jesus here, and you put, like, family smashes it all together and makes you fight all the time. And that is highly valuable. Having conflict is highly valuable, and so we wanted to serve other families by simply living our family life with them.
Mhm.
Okay. And then thus obviously being served by them and their own particular charisms and their own particular, um,
Yeah.
vices and virtues,
Yeah.
living community life together. And I forgot to bring my catechism, but in the catechism of the Catholic Church, the section on community, the church makes it very clear that society
Mhm.
is not an option for human beings. Living in a polity is not an option, it's how we're born. We're
Right.
born needing to be taken care of. We're born into a mansion, as Benjamin Cello says. I'm sure he's quoting someone, but we
Mhm.
we watch we watch a lot of Benjamin Cello at our house. We're born into a mansion, heirs to a great legacy that comes before us, and we're not born as individuals,
Yeah.
individually existing. We have people to thank for where we are, and we have people to thank for trying us by fire
Yeah.
and refining us and helping us grow in virtue.
One of the reasons I think that when we move into family life, marriage and family life, why that, as you said, is such a crash and burn kind of situation initially for most of us. It's a trial by fire for most of us, at least for a time, and it always continues to be. You just get better at riding the wave, I would say, over time.
Yeah.
But the reason is that it's not that you're going from one society to another society. I think for most of us, especially in the modern world, the world is constructed rather diabolically so that we can actually live very atomized, isolated,
Mhm.
unsocial lives, right? Like I don't need my neighbors. I go to church and I work and I shop all at different places with different groups of people. None of us are interdependent.
Mhm.
I only need you except for this transaction, and then our lives don't touch anymore.
Mhm.
So we're actually able to live and construct as single people, oftentimes, very isolated, atomized, independent, liberal lives, liberal in the grand, you know, philosophical sense. Like it's just me and my choices, and they're kind of this isolated world unto themselves.
Mhm.
And that again, as the Catechism points out, that's not how what we were created for. That's not what we are by nature. By nature, we come into the world into a family,
Mhm.
into a society of hierarchy, a society of necessary interdependencies that we can't do away with. They're just there. They're part of the world. And so there's a part after we we leave our family, we kind of get entranced by this, a very independent life, and we feel like we're very free. We feel like we're very patient, and we have very good relationships, and things are um, like we get along with people really well. But then you get married and realize, no, I was actually living just a very comfortable life where I didn't really need other people, and they didn't need me, and I was kind of happy with that and
Mhm.
fine with that.
And
And now,
realizing, even though I worked really
yeah,
hard,
yeah,
like born into poverty, got, scholarships, grants, like whatever I could get to like do what I wanted to do,
yeah,
worked nearly full time from the time I was 15 and a half, like
mhm,
probably once I left high school, full time, overtime, working for school, working like just me working, working, working. And I'm thinking like, I've had all the tests, like I have denied myself, and therefore all these benefits. And then I had kids and I was like, I was so free. I was free to quit my job. I was free to quit school. I was free, like to make all these decisions. And now I'm not free or this other one dies. You know what I mean? Like this
Yeah.
child will die. Um, and just realizing that, yeah, like I had lived a really, really free life and that my parents, their sacrifice, their like very serious sacrifice to have me was why I lived a free life to begin with.
Right.
It was shocking. I hadn't realized that before.
Chesterton wrote, people have said, and I'm paraphrasing here as always, that love is blind. And he said, love is not blind. Love is bound. Love goes through life cycles. I mean, you get married, there's a honeymoon period, obviously, but then, that falls away and you're continually confronting the reality of the other person. And that can be difficult, but you also go deeper because you chose to be bound and you're being faithful and you're being true to that, true to these kids. We're getting off subject here. The point is, is that whether it's your spouse, your children, your community, there's a crashing into other people that's necessary for real community.
Yeah.
And it's not merely systematized. It can't be merely systematized.
The family cannot be systematized. Yeah. I'm working on a project. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm working on a project right now that is supposed to assist families. And my biggest hurdle is that I don't want to systematize the family. You can't. You just can't.
Well, you can't systemize somebody else's. Like in your own family, it's your own work of art. Like our particular liturgy and rhythms and routines and rules and traditions and all that, that's not something you can plan out for somebody else, or you can't pick it up from a book for yourself. But you have to go through the own difficult journey of learning your spouse, your children, building your own family traditions and structure.
But really, truly, the only way that you can come about that is by being in contact with other families and seeing their witness.
Right. That's huge. Yeah.
Well, that is it. I mean, we're born into a family. We learn a family by the family, good or bad, that we have. We see other people's families as we come into contact with them. And then when you're having your own family, you see the good, you see the bad, you see you see the mess of other families.
Right.
And that is important to the formation of our discernment.
Right.
And my mental health, your mental health, in our relationship. So would you like to ask me these questions that you just thought of off the top of your head?
Yes. Okay, well, I'll start with the ones that have question marks because
start at the top. I mean,
family is the building block of society.
Did I write that?
That's at the top of the list there, right there.
Oh, that was the name of our. Oh, okay.
Oh,
here.
Sorry.
How about this one, guys? This is real life here.
Starting with how does one start?
No. Here, let me read the question. What does our mom's group look like today?
What does your mom's group look like today?
This is what a working family looks like, right? This is what having a newborn in the house looks like. But that's okay. It's good.
Yeah.
So our mom's group today is probably a little over 100 women. We started it about 7 years ago. And we're not beholden to any particular parish. So this may look different for other people in other moms groups, but like we live in a suburb and there are about 3 parishes, like super awesome parishes within a really small radius of each other, that we started meeting people who attended. And then also our college group, because we went to college near here, people started relocating their families after college back to this particular area in this diocese. And so we kind of had a little more spread out, so we're kind of around the Diocese of Toledo, particularly Toledo, the Toledo area. And yeah, so we started out just with like play dates because our kids were all younger. We were all like in the throes of having our first, second, third, children.
Right.
And so we started with regular play groups once a week and regular mom nights, maybe once or twice a month. Usually in each other's homes. We eventually moved to restaurants because it just was a lot easier and a lot more appealing to get a drink. And yeah, we started just by word of mouth. Like I think I met a couple of people in the back of church. Someone somehow heard that I was starting a mom's group and phone called me. And Yeah, I had a college friend move back and she was having kids and I knew she needed community and she knew she needed community and we interacted about that. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. There's a dad's group now and our kids, we do random things like if someone's going berry picking, like we did this morning,
Mhm.
be like, "Hey, everybody, I'm going to Johnston's 8:30 a.m. You're welcome to join us, or my pool's open on this day. You're welcome to join us." And so it's
Nice.
become really great.
Yeah.
A community for sharing and helping and, helping in ways around the house and around your property and your parish that maybe wouldn't get advertised in the bulletin that you wouldn't have a way to ask for help otherwise.
Mhm.
So we're pretty active.
Even before we came to this area, we'd been talking about this kind of stuff
Mhm.
for a long time. So I mean, a lot of women would have different answers to this probably, but for you personally, like,
Mm.
what were you wanting from other women when you got started?
Yes.
You started kind of reaching
So,
out.
um, like I said, like our college life was full. Like we were in ministry and we were just full of friends, full of activity. And then we got married and we moved out in the middle of a cornfield 4 hours from where I was familiar with,
Mm.
and I was really lonely,
Mhm.
like really, really lonely. And I didn't know how to meet other women friends who were actually Catholic. That was an issue. So the first thing we did was we started a young adults group at the very first parish that we went to. And that young adults group, I think, is still continued. We were at an awesome Dominican parish with awesome Dominicans. Love those friars. But then we pretty quickly moved to Steubenville. And at that point, we were just far away from everybody.
Mhm.
And I didn't have any help. And we were getting ready to have our second child. And there was a mom's group there. And I think I got connected with the mom's group even like before we moved there. Like I remember the first day we got there, I put a blast out and I was like, there's literally no one to help this man unpack our U-Haul. It has to go back to the store and I'm 9 months pregnant. So can anybody stop by? And they did.
Mhm.
And that was a big that first even just moving in
Yeah.
when I asked for help and someone sent their older kids over to help
Right.
unload the truck, that was huge. And then three of the moms that kind of ran the group lived were our immediate neighbors.
Mhm.
And so I was just kind of like thrown into this moms group that was, I mean, a lot of getting together and talking about your kids and talking about your husbands. And at first I was really put off by that.
Mm.
I was like, shouldn't we be like doing a Bible study? I mean, we're in Steubenville, like we could be deepening our faith. But I didn't realize how much just being with other women and hearing their complaints, so that when it happened in my life, I was like, oh, she had that same problem.
Mm.
This will be okay. Like other people go through this,
Yeah.
or this was her solution, or this is the advice that all the moms, were like laughing and throwing at her. You know, um, it was so formative.
Mhm.
They also set up meal trains.
Mhm.
I forgot to mention that what our moms group looks like today. We just had two women have babies in our moms group this last week, and they already have probably 25 meals scheduled on the
How
meal
many
train.
did we have? We just
We
2
had
months ago.
2 months of meals.
Yeah.
Every
That's
other
incredible.
every other day, someone brought us a meal for 2 whole months.
Yeah.
Um, so and what that really works out to when you're thinking like, wow, that's very labor intensive. Like I make a meal once every 3 months for someone.
Mhm.
Um, so it's not like a huge deal.
Yeah.
I double my meal for our family and then I just like drop it off before you
Mhm.
come home for work with all the kids in the car. And sometimes honestly it's just so much easier to have the kids strapped in the car driving around than it
Right.
is to even be in the house when you have young kids. Um, so I knew what I was looking for. I wanted basically chill,
Yeah.
no cleaning, and I wanted people to have support when they had a baby.
Right.
Like that was my main goal, was just like we just need to be around other women and I can't leave this awesome community in Steubenville um and have nothing here.
Mhm.
So when we moved and I found maybe like three other ladies um to start this group with, I had this like mantra in my mind. For some reason, I don't know where it came from other than like the Holy Spirit, but it was just like you're going to be the only person at every event for 2 years. It was just like in my mind, like it's just going to be you for 2 years. It's just going to be you for 2 years. And sure enough, right? So I'd have a mom's group and one other mom would come. and it would just be me and her, and we'd get to know each other really well. Or I'd host a play group, and it would just be me and one other mom, and it would just be, and sometimes it would just be me, and we'd play at the park and go home. But I was just like, don't stop. Don't stop. Sometimes we have Donut Sunday 3 times and like, nobody's coming. This is a failure. You're just like, don't stop. Like for 2 years, it's just going to be me. And sure enough, like people kept getting added to our group by word of mouth. And that's another, I think, a really important thing for me was that because our kids and our addresses were involved and our phone numbers, we wanted to be free to share addresses and share phone numbers. Like, come over to my house. Here it is. My house is open. We weren't like a bulletin community. It wasn't like we were putting it in the church bulletin. I was literally just meeting women at the back of church, or like seeing a family sitting together and a mom being like really exasperated, or, like looking around like, oh, I hope nobody noticed that about what my kid just did. And I would make it a point to go up to her after mass and just be like, hi, I started a young moms group. We meet for play groups and mom's night sometimes, you want to join it? And the secret is that no one's going to say no to your face. So they'll all be like, yeah, here's my email address. And we have women on the group who have never been to anything. But when I check in with them and I'm like, you don't have to receive these emails every week. Like if you can, I won't be mad if you don't want to be on the list. Yeah. And they're just like, no, it makes me feel really good that I know something's going on and that I could be involved if I wanted to. And so I think just being like totally no pressure. Yeah. There's no pressure. There's no dues. There's no, you have to show up to at least 3 planning meetings, or you have to host at least X number. Like basically being an extrovert, I took it all on myself. Yeah. But it wasn't a lot. It was like, I'm committing to 1 email a week. Yeah. And I'm committing to hosting 1 play group a week where I have to take my kids to the park anyway once, and then I'm hosting one's mom's night at a restaurant or at my house, no cleaning, and once a month. Like that's not undoable. Like that's not too much,
Well, let me back it up for a moment because I'm thinking that even back what we experienced in Steubenville. No, this is good. That's like I'm thinking. I'm not ready to do the dad's group episode yet. We'll do that in the future. I'll get Justin Combs to join us for that. But like as I said, this is a constantly evolving troubleshooting kind of thing to try to figure this out because it looks very different in 2022 than it looks like in any other time in history. Like we have different challenges, different structures, different norms that we have to like wrestle with and figure out how do we have community, build community, keep community. One thing we experienced in Steubenville is that it was sort of like a decentralized, loose knit, unsystematized group. Which there's a part of me that always wants to like systematize all of us. Like, we have to be organized. Like we have to know where everybody is, and we all have to be together at once. Where what we experienced, and then kind of what you've helped to build over the years is again like just this kind of loose knit, decentralized association of women. That another piece of it is that you're just like we have a bunch of people in this group, and you're a preeminent example of this. We're just living our lives, trying to live our lives fully, and simply we're just opening the doors and trying to share them with other people. It doesn't need to be necessarily always planned or perfect or systematized in the future. It's just, as you said, like if you want to stay in contact, I'll send you this email. Yeah. I'll let you know things that I'm doing that other people are doing.
I always make it really clear that there's absolutely no pressure. And the ladies in my group have done such a phenomenal job in opening up their homes when they're very messy.
Right.
So we have a woman in the group who is so she's so wonderful, and she brings so much to us. Yeah, you know who you are. But she is so good at party planning, and she's very detailed around like a central theme. She makes phenomenal food, phenomenal treats, and she'll invite us over, and the party will be in this room, and then every other room in the house will be trashed. And that in and of itself is such a ministry. And that's what I was hoping for, because like I intentionally would just like when I would host at our house, I would clear off like the table that we were going to sit at and clean the bathroom, because we all share one bathroom, kids included, and it just gets really gross. And like that was it. And I would leave the rest of the mess. Now we have a dog, so like sometimes she sheds really bad and I'll clean up dog hair, but like Yeah, just leaving my porch as dirty as it was. Our grass really uncut, like bikes all over the front lawn, toys. I mean, we've been asked so many times whether or not we're a daycare because of the amount of crap toys we have in our backyard. I mean, we don't buy anything. It all comes from somebody else's crib. Um, so, but then I notice that when I go to somebody else's house, like there are cobwebs places and there's toys everywhere and there's laundry everywhere and there's stuff everywhere and there's food stuff everywhere. And it's just like, it's totally fine to be there, and they're totally fine with me being there because I know in their mind they're thinking, one time Teresa did this, it'll be okay.
Yeah, we had that messy hospitality episode. That was one of our big points last year, whenever that was. You got to make it easier. You got to make hospitality easy. And so you can't set high bars, high standards, high expectations. And you don't want to set those either for yourself because you'll go crazy, but also for other people. You need to set the bar real low because we need each other more than we need to look really great in front of the neighbors or.
And we're blessed with very noticeable kids. Okay. So we tend to be the family at mass who's like going in and out and in and out, and kids are talking and we're stopping and sitting down with the kid when we're supposed to be standing, like doing things with our kids because they're very, very noticeable. They have a lot of needs. And I always feel like when my kid is literally punching me in the face as I'm taking them out of the church, spitting at me. We've all been there. I was actually at a Dr. Ray Garandy thing once, and he was talking about disciplining your children, and I had to leave with Dominic kicking me in the stomach, and I left the newborn baby, there in the row, and I just had to leave with Dominic. But I always feel like when that happens, it's a ministry to other people, because honest to God, I know this is going to sound funny, but it's like if they're thinking to themselves, I can bring my kids here because their kids are so bad and they're here, children, I love you so much. You're not bad. You're normal children. But if you're listening to this someday, but I know that the fact that our family is there and loud means that other people are less scared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've had that comment many times over.
Yeah. Tell me about the email list, right? Because what does it even look like? What sort of service do you use? And are you only the stuff sending stuff out, or do you have other people say hey, I'm doing this event, I'm doing that event? How do you manage that? Just the technology.
Sure. For 6 years, 5.5 years, I sent out all the emails from my Hotmail or Gmail account. There was a point where it would go into people's spam folders because we had so many people. So we had to find the sweet spot of the right email thing. We eventually switched over just this last year to a Google group. But I was really glad that we only did it this year because I had absolutely no idea what would occur in 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was glad that people had to reply all to say something to the group because it was an extra, I'm going to share this political thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me back up because I'm not making a ton of sense. So for about 5 years, I was sending out all the emails, and to respond, you had to reply all.
Yeah.
Okay. And I did that for a reason to kind of set the tone. This is one of my hacks. Okay. I did this for a reason to set the tone so that there was no random sharing of all kinds of articles. Because as soon as you start sharing random memes, random general Catholic articles about motherhood, people stop paying attention to their email. So I want our moms group to be when you get an email from the moms group, you click on it because it always has something interesting and relevant to me in my town, in my circle of friends. Kind of like when you get a text message, although now people advertise the text messages and you start to ignore those. Yeah. So that was done intentionally. And because I also wanted to set the tone of I'm not taking myself too seriously, which almost sounds like it doesn't make sense because I'm the only one that's allowed to send the emails. Group, you can reply all, but because every 4 years, everybody feels like they have to force everyone else to vote or not vote for someone. And I did not want that happening.
Mm.
I wanted to set the example that like you could come to your family group and it has nothing to do with anything that's going on anywhere else. It just has to do with our absolute local Perrysburg/Diocese of Toledo group. And so now when we add new moms, I send out like the only 2 rules and like loosely a 3rd rule is we don't allow multi-level marketing emails to the group because that's not what we gave our email for. Like period. It's not for businesses. You know, if you know people individually and you want to send private, this is not against MLMs. It's just that's not what we decided. Like that's not what we gave our emails for.
Yeah.
And again, you want people to pay attention to the email. So that, and then no politics unless it's specifically local to our Catholic community. So like if there is a prayer vigil at the abortion clinic or if like, and that's not even really political. So like I have a hard time thinking of what a political reason would be in our specific Perrysburg Diocese of Toledo. But by saying that, people know like this is not where I try to convince someone to vote for XYZ because the whole world is going to end if we don't do that.
Right.
Or not vote for them. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like it goes both ways. And actually that was a saving grace when the shutdown happened because everyone was picking sides. You know what I mean? And just to have, and I did actually say something. I did actually pontificate on the group and just say like, we've all done something stupid in the last 2 months. Okay. We've all jumped to some conclusion. We have all felt silly for something we've done or thought. Like, I don't want anything that you've seen somebody else do in this group to affect how we go forward. Okay. It's just been a stressful time and we're just going to pick right back up whenever you feel comfortable picking back up and do stuff or not do stuff or do stuff. We did one virtual mom's night and that did not work. It didn't work. You know, but
well,
I'm really grateful that we didn't switch over to a Google group where anyone could email for any reason and have a thread until after that. It has worked very well.
There's probably a lot of tools that could work out there. I mean, people might have suggestions of other ones that would work, but that's
I hesitated about Google and Yahoo groups because a lot of times they're very clunky.
Yeah.
You know, but I do like it's a lot easier to respond and to stay on one particular thread with the Google group. So thank you, Laura, for setting that up for us.
Yeah. So obviously in the midst of this kind of community, again, there's a million different kinds of activities you could do. And that's, I think, a part of the whole process is that you're figuring out like what sort of men's nights, what sort of women's nights, what sort of play dates, you know, or a meal train, what sort of things would work. And it takes some experimentation. Talk about a couple of the things that you and some of the moms in your community have done that have worked well, that have been encouraging.
So for the first 4 or 5 years, we only did playgroups and moms nights. Sometimes we did like a work night.
And the meal train, right?
And the meal trains, yeah. So, and my reason was because I knew, being a mom of 3 at the time and knowing that I was going to have more children and just feeling so overwhelmed, that this is what I could take on. I could commit to sending an email. I could commit to having a playgroup once a week, and I could commit to a mom's night, like just inviting ladies over once a month. I could commit to that.
Or making an extra meal.
Yeah, I'm making an extra meal.
I don't want to forget the food here. I'm really into food.
Yes. No, we're really grateful for the food, and I really love the meal trains. And then things like, and then I would kind of look at bulletins of local parishes, and see if there was anything family specific.
Yeah.
And then I just like throw that in the email too, you know, like there's children's adoration at this parish, you know, or there was a Bible study across town that I started sending women to, and it ended up being like half our moms group because it had free babysitting. And we were all drowning, most of us like away from family as transplants here, you know, like we're on a 3rd, 4th kid and like I just can't get ahead and I have no time to myself, and they had free babysitting. And so I advertised it to the group, and our group populated that Bible study because it was really necessary for us. And then over time we've had things like clothing swaps, which my friend Cruz in Steubenville hosted at her house once, and it was awesome, where she just like took everyone's donations, put them by size, and then people just showed up and shopped. So it was pretty easy. We've hosted that a few times, and we've hosted a Christmas toy swap.
Mhm.
So basically the same thing. Like I would just take all the donations, I'd put them all out,
Yeah.
and then women would come. And with the toy swap, because it's for our kids and it's a little more competitive and it's not about sizes, we draw out of a hat,
Mm,
and everybody gets to go through and pick one toy once.
mm.
And then the second time you go through the numbers, you
Yeah.
get to pick like three toys or
Those were neat
something like
events.
that.
You had, like, treats out in the garage, and what the heck
Yeah.
was this wire?
And
Yeah.
different, yeah, I'm in a wire too.
Mhm.
And different events bring different women.
Mhm.
Okay, so our Christmas toy swap was a totally different group than our mom's night.
Right.
And our anything spiritual or religious or children's adoration is a totally different group from the clothing swap.
Yeah, I was thinking that's one of the strengths of again, I this is interesting for me because, like, on the other side of this, I'm been in different ways, in different formats, working on the dads and the husbands, the community for years, and that's come through a lot of different forms, a lot of things that have worked, a lot of things that haven't. And currently, I'm in a lull. I mean, I really kind of stepped back with the baby coming and everything. I need to get back to doing my bonfire nights. Um, but what you just said right there is a strength to having this guy again, a decentralized, loose knit community where there isn't just one kind of event. Like
Mhm.
everybody is continually
Yeah.
trying things, contributing something. Because again, you may have one kind of event that works great for you, but it may not be on the right time or the right format or the right thing for somebody else. And so to not feel like you have to make something that's permanent,
Mhm.
like it's okay to do one kind of thing and do it once and just try it really well, or do it a few
Mhm.
times, do it once in a while, but not feel like you have to commit to something that's permanent and it's the end all be all and
Mhm.
it has to remain. No, that things have
Yeah.
their seasons and you can try things out.
And so something that's really neat about our group is it's not just homeschooling moms
Mhm.
and it's not just school moms. Like we have an array of all, like it's not just stay-at-home moms.
Mhm.
It's not just working moms. Like it is like every type of Catholic woman under the sun. And sometimes some non-Catholics, like at the very beginning, like if we had a really great conversation with someone and it was really clear that they needed community, we'd invite them and just be like upfront, like this is a Catholic, this is a church. Yeah, we all go to the same church, but you are absolutely welcome to be on our email list and you can come to the mom's nights and you can come, bring
Mhm.
your kid to the playgroup and,
Yeah.
whatever you want to come to, just know that we also talk about praying
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it's totally up to you if you want to come. Um, yeah. So the variety of events are and this is where like the other people in the group really shine,
Mhm.
right? Because I think the toy swap was someone else's idea,
Mhm.
maybe Sarah's idea.
Mm.
And like we have friends who joined the moms group, first lady in the moms group, and then he quit his job and they became farmers. And so the moms group was like, okay, who's going to buy what? How many jars of milk are you going to commit to if we're going to quit our job and and become farmers? And then through that, like it's given us another anchor point for the group, which is they've got this stable farm
Mhm.
and they host events, harvest events and birthdays and stuff like that at their farm. And we also we know where to get our honey from and we know where to get our milk from and we know where to get our pork from and we know where to get our, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? At least we know it's an option. Um, yeah. And the diversity that brings out too, it's a
Mhm.
whole different group of people who purchases meat and honey and milk
Right.
from the Russells.
Mm.
So, yeah, no, it is as diverse as the women who are in the group, and everybody really. I know it sounds cheesy, but like everybody really does bring
Yeah.
their own charism, their own talent, their own blue flame, as Jennifer Fulweiler calls it, to the group.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and that seems like that's a good reason that it has worked is that you've got different personalities. You have a good organizing personality, but you don't necessarily want to put all the things on or have all the ideas or feel like you have to control that. And so
And I
there's
don't have
been
a
a
super great bedside manner. Like I'm not the calm, kind person who thinks of how everyone's going to react to what I just said. It all just spews out of my mouth. So there are other people who are good at that in our group.
yeah. Well, I know it's been gratifying to me. I've heard from lots of the dads or from their wives as we've met at parishes and different events. You know, a lot of people really appreciate the group and the many women they've connected with. And so, again, it's messy, it's decentralized, it's loose knit, it's always an ongoing experiment and evolution. But we need community. We desperately need it. And It's a great application of Chesterton's. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing wrong.
Badly,
Badly,
badly.
badly.
Yes. No,
Whoops.
that's so true. So just as kind of a recap, if you're thinking about starting a mom's group,
Mhm.
first thing, like pray about it. Really tell God. Tell God what you want, where you need support. Um, the very first woman who came to our group had been praying to God that if they moved here, God had to give her friends. And now, like, she's like the mama of our group, like the one everybody comes to, you know. And so tell God what you need, what you want, where you need support, where you're hurting, um, and how you want to bless other people, and ask Him to bring you the people. Don't be afraid to tell your priest. I still vacillate back and forth whether or not you want to make yourself a parish group with a parish bulletin, because that may put a lot of hoops and legalities in your way. So I would just go the route of like meeting somebody in the back of church, and introducing and saying like, hey, you want to get together for play group, or maybe showing up at the new parishioner. Every once in a while people
Mhm.
will have like new parishioner get-togethers, and just showing up there and just being like, I'd love to show up, Father, and invite the young mom. Like, are there
Right.
young moms coming? Like, I'd love to invite them.
Yeah.
And we have a priest who sends us moms quite frequently.
Yeah.
So that's good. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
That's
So
good. Well,
those are
and
those
that's
are good enough pieces of
yeah,
advice.
that's and those are our
Start
experiences here.
small,
We'd love to know
you know.
yours. We could probably do a follow-up episode at some point down the road, if we gather some,
Oh
input of
yeah,
what,
I could talk about this
what
for
ways of
hours.
managing groups, what structures, what kind of events, what sort of things have worked for you
Oh
in terms of
yes,
building
tell
community
me.
amongst women. We wanna know it.
I
We'd
always
love
want
to
to know more
gather that
things.
up and do, like, a follow-up episode and work through some of that, 'cause a lot of times we just need a grab bag of ideas
Hmm.
that we can begin experimenting with, because
Yeah,
there's no one perfect structure here. It's a journey. So, yeah.
yeah. We read every YouTube comment. Okay, I'm just saying. I read every YouTube comment. So
Yeah. So
if
leave
you
it.
want to get in touch with me, it's YouTube.
Yeah, I would love to hear you. So yeah, thanks for joining us for this episode of Elevate Ordinary. We'd love to hear what you think. So be sure to leave us a comment or join the patron community, the Manor at St. Anne's community at Awaken Catholic. Let's see what else I was going to say here. I was going to say something. It was really important, really profound, but it'll have to wait till next time. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Elevate Ordinary. Talk to you again next week. God bless.